And I want you to think as I go through this list that I made today, each and every one of these items, how radical it is and how wrenching it would be to our society. She is farther left than 97% of the Democrats in the United States Senate. She is left of avowed Marxist, democratic socialist, Bernie Sanders. She's not moderate. She's not a pragmatist like the New York Times and the others are trying to tell you. She would decriminalize illegal immigration. Decriminalize illegal immigration. She rejects a physical wall on the southern border. She compared the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Service, the men and women in federal law enforcement who once people come here illegally, they commit crimes and other things, they try and get them and deport them. She compared them to the Ku Klux Klan. She believes in government-run health care for illegal aliens. Imagine what that will do to health care. She believes in the elimination of private health care. Many of you have private health care. Many of you have private health care through your employer or through your union. That means 160 million people would lose their health care. She is a co-sponsor with AOC of the Green New Deal. What is the Green New Deal? To put it simply, it started in Europe. It is a socialist attack on capitalism. It would affect everything from automobiles and homes, heating and air conditioning, the kind of paint you use, everything the federal government will regulate. Everything. In other words, it's a war on capitalism. She wants to attack energy independence after all these decades, where we're finally free of foreign countries and blackmail from OPEC and all the rest of it because of American ingenuity and the hard work of the American people. She wants to eventually eliminate, in short order, coal, oil, natural gas, all fossil fuels, and eliminate fracking. She wants to repeal the president's tax cuts for the middle class. She wants to massively increase taxes on all Americans. She supports infanticide, and even more, she believes you, the American taxpayer, regardless of your religion, regardless of your moral views, that you should pay for it. Abortion on demand, abortion as late as is demanded. She believes the federal government should have to approve any state law that seeks to regulate abortion in any way before a state could actually implement it. She wants to ban what are today legal firearms by executive order in clear violation of the Second Amendment. She wants massive new regulations across the board. She supports Joe Biden's war on the suburbs, Obama's war on the suburbs, where the Housing and Urban Development would basically decide all issues for the suburbs, where libraries would be, how many schools there are, whether you can have single-family homes, and on and on and on. She has said that she supports, if necessary, quote unquote, the packing of the United States Supreme Court. And she believes in eliminating the filibuster. Now, any one of these things would be destructive to our constitutional system, to our economic system, to your liberty, and to your community. Any one of these things. Does that sound like a pragmatic moderate to you, ladies and gentlemen? That sounds like the most extremist, radical politician ever to run for high office in the United States of America. It is about as clear of an un-American, anti-capitalist, anti-individual, anti-constitution agenda as one has ever stated. But what about Kamala Harris when she was district attorney? What about Kamala Harris when she was attorney general of California? What's happening is the Democrats are citing that as an example to show that she's a moderate. Well, I have a man who's been tracking this for some time. His name is Mark Pulliam. He's a Law and Liberty contributing editor. He's written extensively about this, and he knows quite a bit about Kamala Harris and her role as district attorney and as Attorney General of California. Mark, how are you, sir?
I'm very well. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks for coming. I looked at her record. I've looked at some of what you've written. I want you to go through it. I wouldn't say that's a record of a moderate. I would say that's a record of an autocrat and an opportunist trying to claw her way up the ladder in San Francisco and California. Can you break down some major aspects of her record back in California, please?
Sure. I think these days, in the age of the resistance, particularly among presidential aspirants in the Democratic Party, almost everybody espouses this type of hyper-progressive rhetoric. But in her case, if you go back to her track record from when she started her political career in California, you can see very disturbing signs that she really believes these things and that she has acted in the past consistently with these beliefs. She was plucked from relative obscurity as a deputy district attorney in Alameda County when Willie Brown, whom she was dating at age 29, Willie Brown being 60 and married at the time, and for the 2 years that they were in a relationship, he introduced her to the political circles that have led to her meteoric rise since then, appointed her to a couple of cushy administrative agencies positions in California that paid her over $400,000. And at the time, he was Speaker of the California Assembly, which made him really the most powerful politician in California. He was a very crafty, very savvy, very ruthless, very partisan Democrat. And she obviously learned the ropes. When, due to term limits, he was forced out as Speaker, he ran for and became mayor of San Francisco. And that's really where her political career began, when she ran for district attorney. She's only had two challenged, difficult political races. The first one was when she ran in 2003 for district attorney in San Francisco against an incumbent. Ironically, she had the support of the police officers there, because the incumbent whom she was running against had made the mistake of indicting the president of the police union and 8 of his high-level officials, and ended up getting no convictions out of that. So the police were supporting her, and she was able to defeat him. But almost immediately, she showed her true colors. There was a San Francisco police officer named Isaac Espinoza who was ambushed by a gang member, shot down in cold blood with an AK-47, and Kamala Harris, who had run with a personal opposition to the death penalty, announced 3 days after this killing, before the police officer had even been buried, that she would not seek the death penalty against the killer. And this outraged people. It outraged even the Democratic community in California, which is a one-party state. The Attorney General at the time, Bill Lockyer, disagreed with it. Dianne Feinstein disagreed with it. Dianne Feinstein was so upset, she said, I wouldn't have endorsed her for district attorney if I'd known that she would do something like this. Barbara Boxer, who was still in the Senate at the time, disagreed with it and said that she disagreed with it so much she was urging the federal prosecutors to prosecute this gang member under federal law. And the police union, needless to say, was aghast. So this is the kind of prosecutor that she is, one who has such contempt for law enforcement that she would refuse to seek the death penalty for a cop killer. And this wasn't an isolated example. 5 years later, she did the same thing in San Francisco. A MS-13 illegal alien murdered a father and his 2 sons who were returning from a picnic, and she announced that she wasn't going to seek the death penalty against them either. However, once she got in as district attorney, the machine politics took over, and she was reelected in that position without any opposition. But clearly her sights were on higher office, and in 2010 she ran for Attorney General.
Let me ask you another question about her DA position. There's also, as I read, a case involving the molestation of several individuals by certain priests in the jurisdiction there. Do you want to fill us in about that?
Well, this is a controversy about something she didn't do. This is while in many jurisdictions priests were being prosecuted for molestation, there were active cases that her predecessor, Terrence Hallinan, had begun, but none of those were prosecuted during the time that she was district attorney in San Francisco. So this is a matter of setting her priorities and going after priests was not part of that priority, perhaps because some of these churches were